worship at this throne, where our anarchy and rebellion might be a bright light to lead us home. But it vanished like paper thrown into the fire, burning bright for a moment, but moments don't last. We were racing our innocence down to the wire. We never know until it's past.
Okay, that was Handsome and the Humbles with Down to the Wire. This is the Brian Hornback Podcast. Thank you for joining me today on this, the 54th episode of the Brian Hornback Podcast. Just going to talk today about 2021 and what might have happened, what did happen, and all those great possible things. Looking back at some of the statistics for the Brian Hornback Podcast, my first episode in 2021 aired on January the 5th. And that actual podcast was entitled All Eyes on Georgia. And so, it's interesting that on January the 5th of 2021, I would have had my first 2021 podcast, and it would be All Eyes on Georgia. Because what do we know now a year later? We now know that the very next day, on January the 6th, was an insurrection. More or less. Well, not more or less. There was an insurrection. 50,000 people had gone up. That was the day that the Congress and Senate were to certify the election for President Joe Biden. There was a rally there in D.C. Where former President Trump spoke to estimated to be about 50,000 people. And we know that, I've viewed the HBO series, the HBO show, 4 Hours at the Capitol. And so we know that, from watching that, we know that the Proud Boys were there, and they were the first ones to kind of go to the Capitol. And from that, then, other mass of people got to the Capitol. We know that lives were lost at the Capitol on January the 6th. We know that a lot of destruction happened on January the 6th. And hope that never happens again. Or hope that we're more prepared. I'm 100% in favor of free speech. I'm in favor of defending my position and my ability to say what I say. I believe in the act of journalism. I believe that everybody should be able to act as a journalist. And so I'll protect that right. I'll protect the right of free speech. I'll protect the right of a free press every time. But what happened in Washington with our Capitol, I can't support. So anyway, we do know that my first podcast in 2021 was on January the 5th, and all eyes to me were on Georgia. And so that was because of the elections that were going on down there and what was going on. 52% of my listeners listen between the hours of 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. That's interesting because I myself am a very early riser. I get up and I get about my business. So those of you, either that says to me that many of you go to bed early and get up and get about your business, or it tells me that many of you have sleep problems. And many of you are probably listening to me to go back to sleep. But in the year of 2021, there were 37 episodes. We're going to increase the frequency there. We're going to have more episodes. This is already my second episode of 2022. So we're already above the fray. So 37 episodes aired or were recorded and aired in 2021. And of those 37 episodes, it was 734 minutes across those 37 episodes. So, let's kind of talk about, and I'm at this point, I've exhausted all my notes. So at this point, we're just going to kind of talk about what kind of happened. Obviously, President Biden took office. Trump left office. Again, with the Democrats having the House and the presidency, and the Republicans and the Democrats having a very, very almost a 50-50 in the Senate. The good news is they haven't been able to do a lot of anything, and so that's good. I'm in favor of that. I prefer there to be gridlock. The reason I like gridlock is because nobody can. The Republicans, which is the party that I affiliate with, that I'm committed to, that I have been committed to, can't pass things that can mess up our lives, and the Democrats can't pass things to mess up our lives. So I like gridlock because I prefer that a lot of things just don't happen. And so, it's gridlock's golden. But, I do want to say that obviously COVID has continued in this year. In 2021, we had the Delta variant. We had immunizations available. We had 2 immunizations and a booster available in 2021. So a lot of that, and we're already starting 2022 with that continuing to go on. It's COVID. It's COVID-19, so it's coronavirus disease. That's what COVID stands for. And 19 was the year I guess it was created, but it really didn't hit us until 2020. And then of course 2021, and now we're dealing with it again in 2022. So that's an interesting part of it. And so we're still dealing with it in 2022, and I suspect we still will. But in 2021, we had two vaccines and a booster. And then, if you've chosen not to get the vaccine, the more power to you. We're now, I guess, in 2021, some of our younger citizens were able to get the vaccine now. And so that was interesting. Knox County Commission got off to an interesting start in 2021. That's when they started arguing about the merit council and merit system for the sheriff's employees, and so that went on for the first half of the year. And it was ultimately, it wound up ending about mid-year. Then in September, Larson J. Was no longer the commission chairman, and so Richie Beeler and Justin Biggs replaced Larson J. and John Schoonmaker for leadership there. The school board changed leadership from Susan Horn and Virginia Babb to Christy Christie and Evody Satterfield. So that was a change from the previous year. The city council had elections. All 5 incumbents were reelected. The Knox County Republican Party had I guess put their hopes on 5 challengers and put their resources to 5 challengers. City council movement had 3 candidates. Those 3 didn't make it past the August 31st primary, and then ultimately in November, those 5 incumbents all won re-election. And so I don't know that really says anything about the Republican Party, as much as it says that the voters in the city of Knoxville are more left leaning. I almost hate to say left leaning, but I think you can look at the city and you can see that they have the voters of the city have a more intentional vote for Democrats or those that affiliate with the Democrat Party. I don't think the Republicans at this point have been able to put forward the kind of candidates that you need to win in the city. And I don't know that really says that the voters of the city really are. So what I think, where I think the wheels fell off for the Republican candidates is that they continue to talk about national talking points. They talked about the the things that the national stuff, and they didn't really get into the local issues. Whereas I think if they had gotten more into local issues, I think that's where the city voters come down. I think they come down on issues that involve their daily life, that involve their the lifestyle, roads, parks, safety. And I think that when you try to take 5 candidates and you put them all on the same talking points, I think the problem you have is that you don't recognize that the city is very different in West Knoxville versus East Knoxville. South Knoxville or Knoxville is very different in North Knoxville, say out in Fountain City and inward toward 4th and Gill versus what it is in Vestal and Colonial Heights and those South Knox neighborhoods. So, I don't think you can run the six incumbents based on what is currently happening in the city. And so I don't think you can run challengers based on national talking points. And so I think that was the problem in that city election. There was more votes cast this time for the off year. Now, I will stipulate that there wasn't as many. There wasn't 5 candidates running 4 years ago, and clearly the 4 candidates that were the 5 candidates were running. The candidates ran 4 years ago didn't take as hard a right Republican line as these 5 that were able to prevail this time. So that was all interesting. So then how does that prepare us for 2023? I don't know that it does. It all comes back to who are the candidates in 2023 for mayor. And then the 4 seats that you have up in 2023 in the city is the 3 at-larges. So those are currently held by Janet Testerman, Lynn Fugate, and Amelia Parker, and then Charles Thomas out in the 5th City Council district. So it all depends on who those challengers are to those folks, and so we'll see how that shakes out. Certainly, I think there is a target that folks are looking to place on Mayor Kincannon. Obviously, I think she'll have an opponent. She'll probably have one that is much more right than she is. But we'll see how that goes. We've got to get through the 2022 elections, which is the county elections, and there's more than 30 seats up on the ballot then. And so we'll be talking about that more as we get into 2022. I would encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast, it's very likely that you're a political observer. You're a political someone who follows politics. I would encourage you, no matter what side of the aisle you're on politically, whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, whether you're a moderate. I would encourage you to watch the HBO, which is 4 hours at the Capitol. I remember hearing what was going on after lunch a year ago, January 6th. And even after I got home from work, and I watched it on TV, I still didn't really have as full a grasp of what happened. But I think when you watch the HBO, it's only an hour and a half documentary, I guess you want to call it. I have a problem calling it a documentary because I don't know that you have to consider, one, that it was probably put together with a mindset to be more liberal than maybe some of my Republican folks would want to be. I'm not as hard right as I used to be, but I don't. But I would encourage you to watch this HBO program, 4 Hours at the Capitol, because they're taking footage from some of the videographers and the filmmakers that were kind of infiltrated into the mass of people that got into the Capitol, got onto the House floor, got into the Senate chambers. But they also are showing you actual footage from body cam on the officers, and it is somewhat disturbing, because you don't actually you see the one of the cameras does show, not necessarily, they show the firing of the gun, and you don't see the person falling, but you do see that it happens in close proximity. So it's I do think that it's important that we be able to see that kind of information, especially since we have the technology. I guess I just have a problem with folks thinking that their support for former President Trump is like 1776. Because none of us were here in 1776, obviously. But that was we far more advanced since 1776. There wasn't a Capitol in 1776, and you didn't have a rotunda where 7 marijuana joints could be smoked on January 6th, 2021. That did happen. I didn't learn that until I watched 4 Hours at the Capitol. It's just unfortunate that our political structure has gotten into the place that it has, that is what we have gravitated toward. I did not support President Biden. I can't say that he's done anything in the last year that I've agreed with, because he's not. But there is an orderly transition, and there is an election every 4 years. So we can vote him out and vote somebody else in. And I think that will likely happen. But anyway, there's just not. You can protest your government. You can take your redress to your government, but you don't do it by knocking out windows and climbing through openings and that kind of thing. So anyway, it'd be interesting to see. I was at a meeting, the Carnes Republican Club meeting this week, the first week of January, and Betsy Henderson, school board member, was there, and and there was some talk about this, what's going on with the mask and the mask argument. And I've said on this podcast before, and I'll say it again. I'm not going to argue with you about mask. I'm not going to argue with you about the vaccine. I wear a mask. I've been vaccinated. I've been boosted. And that's my choice. And if you don't like it, you can jump on with my haters. And I'm not going to tell you that you should or shouldn't do one or the other. So, somebody was suggesting that the school board and the school system should just buck up and go against the federal judge. I made a comment that, I mean, as long as it's the school board members and the superintendent get locked up in jail, I'm okay with it. That was said as a joke. I don't think that a governmental entity, the Knox County School Board or the superintendent of schools, should be defying a federal judge's orders, whether I agree with them or not, whether the students are students of the Knox County school system or not. The fact is you have a Congress and a Senate at the federal level. You have a House and a Senate at the state level. And you have a judiciary. And the judiciary on the federal level determines what's going on in, the interpretation. Now, whether I have agreed with previous federal judges and rulings is beside the point. That is what they do call the balls and strikes. Same on the state level. You have a state judiciary. They call the balls and strikes. And then you have a president that's supposed to carry out the executive function for all of that. So I know we've lost our way along the way, but it's still the best government in the land, and we should support it. And that's kind of my recap for 2021. And thank you all for joining the Brian Hornback podcast. We're going out with Handsome and the Humble, the second part of Down to the Wire.
And you learn how to roll that smoke.